Alrighty then, I'm back. I pulled myself together. Every now and then I get that moment. So anyhow, in order to get my mother to Ohio is where we have 6 plots. It took me 19 flights. 19. However, in the meantime, while I was getting my mother laid to rest, I made sure her sister got there and her mother. So grandma is next to grandpa, and my mother is sharing a plot with her sister, and also the headstone they share. It's beautiful. Beautiful. I'm thrilled with the way. So now the 4 of them are together. I'm not sure what my Uncle Harry's final arrangements are, but he turned over the last 3 plots to me. So I don't know I don't know who will be occupying those. It won't be me. My final arrangements are down the river. So anyhow, even though my relationship with my mother sucked, in the end, I still did what I should have done. And that's been 20 years ago. So I was in 45, like maybe when she passed. Getting ready to be 46 because she had passed on March 1st of 2003. I've not been back to the cemetery. I have no intentions on going back to the cemetery. So anyhow, I was telling you about some of my life, my upbringing. So anyhow, I was on my own, which I was okay with that because I'd been on my own for a few years at this point, several years. At this point, I had married in the meantime to John Fisher, who just passed in January. And married to him 22 years. And then when all this occurred with my mom passing, I'd been single and divorced for another 3 years. And of course, helping mom, trying to work, take care of my own home, my own children, helping my mother. But I did it. So, losing my mother was not as big of an impact on me as it was on most women when they lose their moms. I get it. I wish I had that type of relationship with my mom, but unfortunately it did not happen. I'm not going to go into... It's just not... There's no need for it anymore. But maybe it'll help everybody understand who I am and why I'm like I am. Although I don't think it's a bad thing that I'm like I am, because I got my ass through life pretty much on my own. So, married to Jack Fisher. I might have mentioned it in one of my videos. I'm not sure. My husband's uploading my videos, and I don't think he's picked up all of them. But if he didn't, he was an alcoholic. Bad. I didn't realize it because I was young. I was real young. And he was 16 years older than I was, but I was head over heels about this man. We dated, then we lived together for a while because I don't care. I fully believed you from day one that that's the thing to do, so if you like each other. And it seemed to work out well, and then he asked me to marry him, and went to get the marriage license. Never got one because I'd never been married, but apparently he had. He failed to tell me. I was going to be wife number 4. the red flags probably should have went up. But again, I was young and I was in love. And looking back, had I had the realization of what that means, I probably wouldn't have married him because you know what? Them other three women cannot all be wrong. However, I jumped into it. We got married at home. We lived on the beach, had a big wedding. It was beautiful. He cheated on me right after we got married. However, it kept on through the whole 22 years of marriage. A lot of it was behind my back in the beginning for many years, you know, because I had my one daughter and we got married in 83, I think, and Becca was born in 85, so I'm busy being a new mom. And well, during the whole pregnancy, he was out sleeping around. I found him one day. I was going to the store. I looked down a side road for whatever reason. I saw his truck sitting there. I park my car. I get out of my car. I walk up to the front door. The door's open, the screen door. He's laying on the couch with another woman. I did an about face and lie. He had told her because I was pregnant that he wasn't getting enough sex from me. What the hell did he want? So anyhow, oh lordy, the stories I could tell you about those 22. I don't have enough lifetime left to tell you what happened with that relationship. That was the hardest thing I think I have attempted so far in my life, was staying married to him. But you know, I took my vows. I was young. I was stupid. I was determined. I was going to make it work. Kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? You know, why am I not good? Guess what? You know what I found out? That's why I was married 3 other times. And then, while we're married, he's seeing the last 2. So now, at this point, you know, I've got a child, 2 children actually, one by him. He adopted Sam. I stayed married as a marriage of convenience. I worked. I had to. He drank so much, he would come home on Friday with no paycheck. A million excuses, you know. Somebody took it out of his pocket, blah, 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 blah. Anyhow, I'll probably reflect back on that relationship from time to time, but you know, here's the thing. When it was finally over, I just couldn't take anymore. So I filed for a divorce. My kids were all grown. He didn't think I should divorce him. He came to me and said, your dad said that men in their 50s do things like this. Well, my dad and I had a great relationship, so don't you know, my fat little ass went right to him. What the hell? And he was like, well, I didn't mean it for him to cheat. He says, but we were talking one day and I was trying to explain to him that, you know, men, when they start getting older and go through the change, they want to prove that they're men. But I said, Dad, really? You just gave him the fucking green card, really? So it just escalated from there, and I moved out. I moved out of my house. I had a mobile, moved into it. My poor renter had to get out. I stayed gone for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. And I had gone to see a lawyer, and he got word of it. So he come over to my house. I don't want a divorce. We can make that. we don't know what's going to happen next week, 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever. I said, I do. I'm divorcing your ass. And I did. I went through it, didn't look back. And at first he was pissed off at me, blah, 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 blah. But, we worked out the differences and became really good friends. We got kids. We got grandkids. Come on. Grow the fuck up. I would get the occasional, drunk phone calls. I love you. I miss you. I want my family back. Blah, 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 blah. And I had met Chris in the meantime, and we decided, this is what we want to do. We got married. We'd sit here at night, and I'd turn the phone on speaker, and, I have nothing to hide from Chris. And he knew it, but he knew that, no matter that things didn't work out, there was that special bond because of the kids and the grandkids. And him and I stayed, we talked. We even went to lunch with him and his girlfriend, actually this last Christmas. He came to my daughter's home, and we all spent Christmas together. So that, and I spent his last 3 nights, I told you that, right next to him at his hospital bed, until he took his last breath. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. I laid with that man for 22 years. He wasn't going to lay there and die by himself because his girlfriend decided it was more important for her to go to the fucking bar. Really? An 85-year-old woman, it's more important for her to go to the bar and be with the man that she's lived with for 6 years who's about to pass away? I don't care what my relationship was with him, and it was pretty bad at times. Got physical a couple times. And I'm not going to blame that all on him, because after years of putting up with that kind of abuse, not being home and bartenders calling you and... Anyhow, he wasn't going to die by himself. Wasn't happening. So anyhow, that part of my life is over and done with. And maybe from time to time I'll reflect back on maybe a situation or something funny, because we had good years. It wasn't all bad. I will never say it was all bad. And I don't think if he was still here today, he would ever tell you that he didn't see it bad, but he was drunk all the time, But I was a faithful wife. I stayed a wife. He still got his breakfast and lunch and dinner every day, and his house cleaned and bills paid and laundry done, and until I signed that dotted line. Then that shit ended really fast, because even when I moved out, I went back over, kept the house clean, made sure everything was taken care of, made sure they had food, would feed them. So I didn't feel bad about that situation, because I did everything I was supposed to do. So anyhow, a little bit about my sisters. Don't get me wrong, I loved my sisters. And I have learned over the years, people can't be who we think they should be. We can't make them who we want them to be. And we either have to love them and tolerate who they are, or we need to stay away. Well, growing up, it was rough with both my sisters, because I told you the situation. Youngest one, too young to do anything, too sweet. The oldest one, well, I'll tell you what, I think the reason I became so tough in life is because they would gang up on me, the two of them. Beat the piss out of me. One would sit on me and the other one would kick me. That shit didn't last very long. Then I started getting in trouble for reacting and hurting them. So, the vicious cycle went around and around and around. My youngest sister, I always, and I didn't find out until, adult years, I always thought, even though she was spoiled rotten, that she was a good kid. This is what I get from minding my own business. I didn't know what was going on with her. My older sister, of course, that was a given. And the bad thing is Jennifer married a real nice guy, her first husband. Man, she fucked him over. She had it made with that guy. But, you know, with her and my younger sister, here's the thing with them, with men. If they're not knocking your ass around, they don't think that they love you. They always chose men that like to put their hands on him. That may, I kept getting, you don't understand, he loves me. The fuck I don't understand. Somebody puts their hands on me. If they walk away, I'm going to hurt them bad. I don't care what I have to do or what I have to pick up. And if I don't get them then, they better never go to sleep around me again. And, of course, Jennifer in her early years got into drugs, heavy drugs. But by this time, you know, I was establishing my life and, you know, I'd had my daughter and I was trying to stay away from that mess over there anyhow. So years go on. And I'll revert back to things in my past a lot because there's a lot I can... Ooh. And Jennifer's husband, I guess, had enough of her. He divorced her, or she divorced him. I really don't know because I'm not one to stick my nose in everybody's business. I just know that he was a great guy and she was an asshole. Norma ended up marrying her first husband. I think she got married when she was 16 because my mom had to sign for it. I might be wrong. Might have been 17, but I think she was 16 because she was pregnant. So she married her first husband, you know, and Daddy put her up in a place, paid their bills, you know, because she was spoiled. Well, that didn't help her at all, and that marriage didn't last. She married her second husband. Still very young. He was one of my best friends all my life, all through school. Now it's a different story. I'll tell you about that later. I didn't know about that till it was all said and done. That was a wild ride for her. She was too young, and these fellas were too young, so she had another child. She had her youngest son, Ricky. I'm trying to think how long that marriage lasted. Maybe 8 years or so. I don't know. Then on to her third husband. That was extremely violent. Didn't last. Then on to her fourth husband, Michael. Didn't last. And then her fifth husband, Dwan. That didn't last. And I don't think she got married. I think it was 5 times. Seems to be like a family thing. My grandma on my dad's side was 6. My dad was 6. She was 5. My mom was like 4. I'm staying at 2. I really didn't want to write the papers on the second one, but it was the right thing to do if I wanted to be in a relationship with this man. Some psychopathic woman up on the TV. Here goes the brain again. Bear with me. My brain is... Ooh, I need to get out in the sunshine today. That's what we're doing. We're going out on the water. Oh, so anyhow. And next thing I know, with husband number 2, she had moved to Florida. I'd been here for a while. And the other husbands she had met, they were all, except for her second husband, he was pretty good. He laid back, easygoing man, my friend. And I'm not just saying that because he's my friend. That's just who he is. And the last boyfriend, that was strange because that last boyfriend was going back and forth between her and my ex-husband's wife, who I think she would have been like 25, 30 years older than him. I think he was just a gigolo. That's what I called him, a fucking gigolo. He was going back and forth, whoever had the most to offer him at the minute. And she got away from him. I thought she was getting her life straightened out. Drugs. I didn't know it for a long time. Drugs. Not only was she doing them, well, when you have a lot of it, you know what you're doing with it. So I separated myself from her. God help me. She got my youngest one onto some really strong stuff, my youngest daughter. And her boyfriend at the time, it was a fucking mess. A fucking mess. I distanced myself. I wanted no part of that. And, you know, my older sister, she'd been in and out of the hospital. They had to Narcan her. I can't tell you how many times. They had to bring her back. Drugs. I'll tell you about her in a minute. And maybe you'll understand why I'm kind of like I am. Because the people I've been surrounded by. So I don't know what happened to her. You know, because Chris and I moved 65 miles north. So, and again, like I told you, I don't stick my nose in everybody's business, but I do know she was living with my older sister at the time, which was not a good situation. Both of them doing drugs. My older sister's pimp boyfriend living there, and he was extremely violent. And that didn't work out, of course, for whatever reason. And she moved in with some guy. I don't even know who it was. That was the end of her story. They found her dead. It's been 5 years ago. And I had just talked to her like 10 days before she had called me and talked. You know, again, like I told you, you got to work with who they are. We can't make them who we want them to be. You know, so I loved her from afar, and she had called me and said she was getting her driver's license back and that she was getting clean and she wanted to come back and, you know, rejoin the family and be a part of everything. And so I was trying to take her at her word, you know, and that she would be up to see me, blah, blah. Well, it never happened. Never happened. So anyhow, the husband is up, and we're going to start getting ready to go out on the water. I will do a vid on the water, maybe 2 or 3 or 4. I don't know how many I'll do. Look at me, but I'm going out on water. I don't really care what I look like today. And as we go on, I'll try to remember where I left off, and amongst everything else, I'll try to update you with some of these things. I don't tell everybody, but now I am telling everybody, and maybe everybody will understand who I am and why I am. So in the meantime, guys, enjoy your coffee. Have a beautiful morning, and I'll be back shortly. Thanks for stopping by. See you in a bit.